Yeah. All right, beautiful. So we're recording now. This is going to be lots of fun. So welcome to everybody who's joining us, whether you are joining us live this evening for our inaugural conversation for this brand new interview series that just kind of got put together over the last couple of weeks. And so the real impetus behind this is so that we can have a conversation about some of the issues that's going on in society right now and give our perspectives on them. So the format of these conversations is really just a general conversation between myself and another professional. So tonight we've got the lovely Fleur on, and we're just going to be sharing our perspectives and our professional insights on these issues and perhaps provide some ideas and solutions for people. What do you think, Fleur?
I think it's great. Well, give me the microphone, I'm happy. So, I don't know what the others will think, but you know, once you start talking, the amount of different perspectives they can open up. I'm so looking forward to the next few weeks and seeing who else you interview and seeing how that changes my perspective and my thoughts on things as well. So I think it's great. I think it's learning. I think it's supportive. Yeah. Fingers crossed. You know, it's all supportive and it's all upbeat. And yeah, I can't wait.
Exactly. And I think what you just said as well there, Fleur, is really important. It's about looking at having different perspectives and learning from those different perspectives. And people who do come with that attitude to anything, I think, any topics, regardless of whether it's, you know, kind of world crises that we're dealing with right now, or you know, outside of these issues, when they're dealing with day-to-day stuff, if you can come with an attitude of looking at all sides of the equation, then you've got to have an informed perspective. And I think, and that's really part of the big issue that we're trying to deal with here is bring on different people, different perspectives, look at some of the hard-hitting topics that people are dealing with in their everyday lives, and hopefully we'll all learn something from this.
One of the biggest things I think hopefully we've all come to understand in the last couple of years is that none of us, I don't care where you're sitting in this whole worldwide thing that's going on, but not one of us knows it all. We really don't. Yeah. Some of us are researching, some of us are looking at different angles, some of us are really delving deep within and all coming up with all sorts of different things. Hopefully we can agree on some things. We all need support and we all need to care about each other, but as for the rest of it and why it's happening and who it's happening to and why this happened and why that action was taken, oh my goodness, you know, we can all come up with big discussion. I tell you what, I'd really like a discussion. So this is wonderful because that's the one thing that we've not been allowed to do the last 2 years. So I'm up for that. Yeah, rather than saying I know and this is where I stand and this is true. It may be true to you right now, but who knows? Let's be open to talking about it and discussing and see what other sides and views there are and other bits of evidence and other bits of feelings and stuff. Yeah, that's the one thing I've missed. Can't talk about it.
Is talking about it. And you know, goodness me, you know, I've known Fleur for probably about 3 years now.
I'm so sorry, probably too long for you. So it's forever.
She's a hoot. So Fleur runs a community service project called Blue Guardians, and it's about helping ex-cops, military. Is it military as well?
It was a pilot project I started about 5 years ago now. I was going through some troubles, my husband was, and 25 years now it's been within the realms of military and first responders, police predominantly. So 5 years ago, I literally started a pilot project, called it Blue Guardians, for sake of a better name. I'm sure we can all come up with better ones.
That's right. That's when I met you, when you just started Blue Guardians.
Yeah, yes, possibly. I came to one of your events.
It's been longer than 3 years.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'll tell you what, the last 5 years, the pilot project has just turned into very much a support mechanism. Lots of education there, lots of networking, and I've been blessed in as much as, because I'm a bit mouthy, I talk a lot, as you know. Happy to talk to anybody.
Love you for it.
I've gained so many good connections with members of parliament, with psychologists, with experts, with counsellors, with other support groups, with lots of not-for-profits. So I've been able to help people when they really are at their wits' end, thinking, I can't do this anymore. I've got the chair and the rope ready. It's got to that point. So thank goodness I know these people. It's not me helping them, but I know these people, so I can get them in there, get them on a trauma course, get them into hospital. I've been able to do that. So for the last 5 years, that's very much what this has been about. It's been a huge learning curve for me. It started off to find out what was out there, only to find out that there really wasn't much out there. And we're still running uphill. It's still hard work. But from that's now moved on, and I've got my own service website coming up and all the rest of it with bigger things not bigger things, more focused direction in helping people. And there's lots of people out there. So again, talking about this today, you know, we could talk for hours on the help that is out there. You just don't know about it yet.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, it's shining the spotlight on the services that people might not know that is available for them. And for those of you who are listening, and just FYI, with these types of conversations where people are jumping in on the call, but I'm only going to show the screen of myself and Fleur, so just of the speakers. If you guys do have questions, we're not going to take questions in these particular conversations, but you can leave your questions and your comments on the social media post where we'll place this afterwards. And that way Fleur can answer any questions, I can jump on, answer questions, but we just want to keep this as purely our interview with each other and our discussion for those purposes. So please don't be offended if I've taken you guys off screen. It's not because you're not beautiful, it's just because this is the format I would like to keep a bit. So
far more pretty, far more beautiful than me. I've got a face for radio, I've been told. I know.
So you know, part of the reason why this series came about is because no one really will know unless you've heard my conversations in some of the groups over the last couple of weeks, was purely because I was seeing and hearing the stories of people who were struggling with their day-to-day lives. They were struggling with mental health, and this included self-esteem issues, feeling as though they were ostracized from society, feeling subhuman. Some people I've heard some people call it feeling like a leper, being completely shunned out of the world that they lived in, not knowing where they can turn to, not knowing their place in society anymore. And then we've got businesses who are struggling on both sides of the coin. Some businesses who are pro-choice businesses, they want to allow people in, and they are allowing people in, and they're getting arrested for it. Then we've got businesses who are acting like Gestapos and using force and using aggression to kick patrons out of their businesses, right? So there's just so much upheaval going on, and I could not see the way that people's sense of humanity was being just etched away from them. The lack of compassion that people are demonstrating for each other, that sense of knowing that you do have a place in society and that your citizenship means something, that means nothing to a lot of our tyrannical governments right now. And so as I was seeing and hearing a lot of these stories, I was like, you know what, I know some really good people. Why don't we just talk about the problems that people are facing and bring their expert opinions onto a forum like this? And so for those of you who are listening who haven't heard some of these stories before, this is why we're doing these series. So Fleur specializes in trauma incident recovery. So do you want to have a chat with us about what that is and what that means for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't take too much of your time up on this with that, because everybody can, I'll have a website up and you can all go to that and it'll be great. But the Blue Guardians is a support network, is the education, is the talking to all the other organisations, is helping people. You don't know what you don't know. How do you know what you're looking at to see if there's an issue? First off, my husband's angry all the time. What's going on? You know, is there something there that needs addressing? To where do you find help for that? So obviously that is very necessary, it's valuable, vital information. And that's where this Blue Guardians is now evolving, really. We're going to take that element and put it alongside advertising all of these organisations, talking to all these organisations, very much like we're talking now, and less talking from me, far more from the organisation themselves. And it's got to get a thumbs up. And also the one thing I'm now trained in, about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I found traumatic incident reduction. It's a really wordy term. I'd love it if the people that invented it, created it, brought it together would come up with a shorter term. Unfortunately, we have traumatic incident reduction. So that TIR.
TIR. It's going to have to get.
There you go. TIR, whatever.
Yeah.
A very valuable tool, and something just as another tool. So we have psychology. We have medication, which obviously I'm not particularly a fan of, but I know it's necessary at times. Of course it is. So I'm not knocking any of these things. There's counselling, there's support groups, there's people that have done really great with fitness and really addressed their PTSD and mental issues with fitness and diets, sleeping pattern, sorting out their sleeping pattern, their relationships, because at the end of the day, it's a whole holistic approach. It needs to all come in together. You deal with one, you still have the other ones. They all need to be resolved. Otherwise, really, you're not dealing with the hardcore issue. But yeah, TIR, a fabulous tool. A lovely guy, Dr. John Durkin. He's actually English. I seem to navigate towards English. I don't mean to, but maybe it's the only language. They only understand me. Maybe, I don't know. And but he was a fireman, left with PTSD. He found TIR, comes from America originally. It is all over the world, but not very well known. And he trained in it. He's great and doing amazing now. He's running his own organization and trained as a psychologist as well. And he can't, the people he's helped with TIR is exceptional. Lots of stories there. I won't tell them all now. That'll be something to go on to another day. Terrorist attack in London, Grenfell Towers, all of those big things you'll heard about, particularly in England, but he went to America as well with 9/11. So lots of things there.
And I can imagine, Fleur, that you're, are you doing a lot of trauma work with the frontline services?
I'm doing some because I don't have the website up yet, and it's got to be up this week. That's my game. That's
awesome.
So it's friends of friends at the moment, and it's been amazing. The last year, yes, I've dealt with some, been amazing. So I'm now moving from the supporting and free work, which I love, helping the wives that are struggling, the husbands that are struggling, and the actual officers themselves, and making sure they get to see the psychologist or the one particular option that suits them. Again, we're all human. So why are we still going on the premise that one size fits all?
And so what are your thoughts on trauma in the current climate? So with the current lockdown culture that we're experiencing, so people are watching this from places outside of Western Australia, and Fleur and I are both in Western Australia, and we've got some very harsh lockdowns here. We're essentially the largest open prison in Australia, probably in the world, because the WA is so huge. But if people leave, it's very difficult for them to get back in. And it has been like this since October or so last year, Fleur? Yeah. It's been a long time. Yeah. And so we're facing some a very difficult climate here in Perth. And so that's part of the thing that I wanted to talk with you about tonight, was to get your insights on, how is this affecting people with current traumas or PTSDs? And are you noticing that people are at a higher risk of experiencing traumas because of these very arbitrary policies that we have, people not being able to move around and so forth? What is it doing to our mental health?
The fear is huge. The news, we all hear it every single day. It's relentless. It's almost like death stats. The deaths aren't there, or certainly aren't in the capacity that the government and the media like to portray. When you actually get down to the stats, they're not there. But the picture they create is fear, is death, is you need to be afraid, you really need to lock yourselves up, you need to stay indoors, mustn't touch anybody, go near anybody, face masks, all of these measures that, as far as I'm aware, the research I've done don't do anything anyway for a virus. So again, it's confusing. Everyone's I'm confused. I don't know how you feel, Ilse. I'm confused with all the messages I've been getting the last 2 years. What's fact? What's not fact? What's for health reasons? What benefits are they? What's really happening? None of us really know. Can I brought up before I turned on today with Ilse, I brought up the definition of trauma, because I think this is very relevant. We talk about, obviously, my background, where I came from, military and first responders, and we talk about trauma. It's usually, up until COVID, it was in the papers regularly. People suffering, we need more mental health support, all of these helplines and everything maxed out, all of these things. We hear about it a lot.
Isn't it interesting that there's very little reports about mental health ailments and other types of injuries since COVID started? Apparently,
and we're not discussing suicides or attempted suicides, which I'm fully aware of. They're not deemed important right now, which to me is revolting. But I wanted to make the point that right now, regardless of your mental health before this, I really think we're going to see so much more coming. I think it's already started, but I think in the next year or so we'll see even more people struggling. I think hopefully it will all come around. We'll all be okay in the end. But right now it's
we've got a big job to do, though. I mean, because people who are currently experiencing who were experiencing trauma before this occurred, or if they were experiencing anxiety, depression, OCD, even all of these types of mental health issues, these I can just imagine are being exasperated over this period of time.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, let me know, anybody watching as well, let me know what you think, whether this resonates with you, whether you can see any link. Okay, this is the trauma definition from the APA Dictionary of Psychology. Trauma is depicted as any disturbing experience that results in significant fear, helplessness, dissociation, confusion, or other disruptive feelings, intense enough to have a long-lasting negative effect on a person's attitude, behavior, and other aspects of functioning. Traumatic events include those caused by human behavior, could be rape, war, industrial accidents, as well as by nature, so earthquakes or even viruses, and often challenge an individual's view of the world as a just and predictable place.
Wow.
Tell me what you get from that. I'm interested to know what you think.
That's huge. Well, it's massive. So my perspective on that is I'm linking it back to the conversation we're talking about today, which is, the lockdown, climate, etc. So if natural events can cause trauma, if someone's behavior can cause trauma, then what does it mean? And it means that this is probably linked to it. But when people go out shopping and they see people wearing masks constantly, children going into school and having to talk to their teachers, can't see their lips moving. They need to have that kind of, visual representation of someone's lips moving. Even those types of behaviors would, be a little bit startling for young children as well. Going into movie theaters, the last time we actually went out, we had quite a rude experience with a girl at the counter who I think she was just very stressed about having to enforce the mask wearing policy. And she was just really anxious, Fleur, and make sure that if you guys go in, you do put it on, because otherwise I can't let you in. I said, oh no, I've already heard you. And I've said that we will put it on if we're going to go into the theatre. That's totally fine, right? And then soon after she kind of said it again. And I said, you've already told me that, and I've already agreed that if we're going to go into the theatre, we understand it's your policy, we'll put it on, it's fine. And she just could not stop getting flustered. And so, you know, when you read that definition, I think about those everyday examples where people, no matter what side of the equation they sit on, they are experiencing some kind of challenge. They're experiencing either the pressure from having to enforce these things, or they're feeling the pressure from being on the other side of it and feeling as though that they are doing something wrong for not complying with these ridiculous policies. So those are the types of behavioural things I'm noticing when you read that. I just think back to some of the experiences we've had, and I'm like, you can see people are just really uncertain and, as you say, in fear about what will happen if they do not enforce these things upon people.
There's a mixture. We've got as you just spoke about, a lot of them are fearful. A lot of them, it's not them, it's us as a society at the moment. Some of us are scared of government or their business repercussions, of getting told off, of getting closed down, losing business, losing as we've seen, there's so many empty places around the city right now, unfortunately. So that's one aspect. The other, I got shouted out in a cafe once, said, can you put a mask on, please? I actually didn't have one with me. This was just when they'd only just started putting them back on again now, a couple of months ago. I actually didn't have one on me. And I apologize. I was super polite. I wasn't being rude. Not my place to be rude, believe it or not. But I said, I don't have one. And she shouted across the cafe, it's the law. Wow. And I said, it's no problem at all. I'll go outside. She wanted me to go outside and order. I didn't, I left, it was easier. But no hard feelings to her. She was scared. She was really scared. It wasn't my place to, say, well, actually, it's a mandate, it's not a law. That doesn't help anybody right now.
Can I clarify for everyone who might be saying, well, why are you guys saying, wow, why have you got that response? She's right to say that. The reason why I'm saying, wow, and I'm a little bit stunned by that, is because of the very reason we're doing this podcast, Humanity Unshackled. It's because people are losing their sense of humanness in how we are interacting with each other by disrespecting patrons when they walk into a store, by not being empathetic, not being polite, all of these fundamental moral values in which, humanity is based upon, good citizenship is based upon. And that's been completely eroded. And that's why we say, wow, it's not necessarily because of the policy, it's because of how people are reacting to this now. And just on a side note, Fleur, my daughter actually did go and say to her teacher, it's not a law, it's a mandate. Because
how was that dealt with? What happened?
They didn't know, she said that it offended the teacher. I'm surmising, because yesterday in Perth it was something like 38 degrees or something like that. It was very hot. And the children, the high school kids here in Perth are being asked to wear the masks in class. Very hot, air conditioning,
my son too.
All of that. And so in class, the kids were taking it on and off, as you would imagine, so they could have some fresh air for oxygen. And so the teacher yelled at the kids and yelled to them, it's a law. By law, you have to wear your masks. And so all the children kept taking it on and off, and the teacher, again, was yelling at them, it's a law. And so my daughter, my 14-year-old, she got up and she walked over to the teacher's desk and she quietly had a word to the teacher, and her retelling of the story was, she said, Mum, she kept saying to us, it's a law, but it's not a law. And I was just getting frustrated that she was giving the kids incorrect information. So she said to her teacher, excuse me, miss, but it's not actually a law, it's a mandate. It's just them requesting us to do something, but it's not a law. And the teacher said, oh, no, it is. And Sade said to them, no, it's actually not. But I'm not going to argue with you. I just wanted to let you know that what you're telling the kids is not correct. And she left it at that. I got a letter home from the school saying that my daughter had been, my daughter was being non-compliant. And I'm like, of course, it's a silly thing. And I said, and so, but the teacher didn't say anything about the fact that she had that conversation. So I surmise I only got a letter home because the teacher was a bit offended that a 14-year-old pointed out that her information was incorrect. And why would I tell my daughter off for that? The information was incorrect. She was telling a group of 14-year-old impressionable children the same thing like everybody else is giving the disinformation that everybody else is giving out there in terms of mainstream media, that these are laws. They're not laws.
No, not gone through Parliament, not been passed. No,
exactly.
not a law at all.
Yes. So sorry, carry on with your story. But these are how conversations between Fleur and I go generally.
so yeah. Also, honestly, gosh, she talks so much. So I've had that. But the one side is that the misinformation, and again, look, I'm learning all the time, so I'm no great, as we all are, we're no great dictionary on all the laws and regulations here, but I'm searching, I'm finding, I'm doing my very best to find out what's right. And still, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I really am. I'm not here to break any laws. Ex-cop, I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
We kind of trust you. You're a good one.
But then you've got the other side, and you've got the ones that are really scared of a virus. We seem to not be trusting our intuition anymore. We seem to forget that we have immunity to things once we've had them. We seem to have that our body can cope with lots of things. Viruses all the time. Viruses are always going around us all the time. And we live in a great society. We have good food, water, fresh air. Wow, vitamin D does a huge thing. Vitamin D and all of those do amazing things. But we are all scared to trust ourselves now because of the relentless news and misinformation all day long, every day for 2 years.
And so that's the fear component you're talking about, that can create people to feel that sense of trauma.
I've got a friend that won't hug me anymore. She's in her 60s, and had a cup of tea with her a couple of months ago, just before Christmas, I think it was, and went to give her a hug goodbye. She said, no, we don't do that anymore. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow.
Why was that? What was her?
Because of this. Yeah, because of this. We don't do this anymore. Oh, wow. What kind of society are we living in? That's terrible.
Well, you take that physical contact away from people, and so you don't have that, that body to body, that human touch, which we need for our psychological health.
Our body is amazing in looking after us. It really is, our whole system, and power of the mind. So mental health is a big one as well. So you change your perspective, and the things you can achieve. I'm going through some business stuff at the moment, trying to get my bum in gear and get the website up and stop doubting myself. So that's all part of it as well. You can do this. And I know I'm fit and well. So I know that, and I take some vitamins. I have a good diet. I get outdoors. Wow, I went for a walk the other day in a park, and I didn't realize I haven't done that for a couple of weeks. And it was beautiful. Yeah. Breathing in, nobody with a mask on in sight. So that made a huge difference as well. And I just thought everybody needs to do this, everyone.
And I wonder if you're one of the few who is, taking that time to kind of enjoy what's going on out there, outside, or if most people are just so fearful that they are staying indoors because of, as you say, the relentless media coverage.
The confrontations, who wants to go shopping with a mask on or without a mask on, and the confrontation, either way, it's not good, it's not fun. And then the discussions with people, some people that are actually investigating this and looking into this, others that are completely not, and everyone is finding their own way through this, so there's no judgment here. But either way, it's hard.
And even that, our behaviors have changed so much in all of this. And I know I don't want to go to a shop, and I don't wear a mask when I go to shopping centres, and no one really says anything. I don't think Coles and Woolworths, which is the Australian major brands here, I don't think they can say anything. And so, but I know in terms of my behaviours, I don't go out shopping and outdoors and so like that as much as what I used to. And certainly in Western Australia, since the 31st of January, if you don't have what they consider to be full vaccination, which is 2 jabs and 3 boosters, something like that. It's just, just like this ridiculous cocktail of medical treatments they want people to inject into themselves. So if you don't have all of
protecting
those,
anybody anyway.
So if you don't
That's
have all of
where
those,
the confusion comes. So what no wonder people are getting frustrated and thinking, well, I don't get it. Even if I've had them, I'm not helping, and I'm not helping my grandmother. I'm looking after me, but I'm not actually not helping my grandmother, but whatever. But then if I haven't had them, well I'm no worse off than the ones that it's just
precisely. But so we aren't actually allowed into places if you don't have proof of vaccination. So we can't go, we can't go and watch our favorite sporting teams. We can't go into most, big restaurants that we would have gone to in the past. We can't go to the theatres. We can't go to live shows. There's just been Fringe World Festival here in Western Australia, which runs over, I think, December, most of January or so. We usually go to a lot of those. That we haven't been to any of those. So our behaviours are completely different because we've been locked out of society, which is not segregation, it's exclusion. It's you are excluded from society. It's not if you're
good clarification. Thank you, Ilse.
Here. What's that?
Good clarification, because like you said, I keep calling it's another form of apartheid. But it's actually not. It's
exactly. Yeah. My parents were raised in South Africa. They were raised through the apartheid era.
Yes.
They still had the places that they could go for what they called the coloured race. So they weren't allowed in shops for white people, but they could go into shops for coloured people. They could go to the coloured drinking fountains, but not the white drinking fountains. Schools, that's segregation. They're the only place unvaccinated or unjabbed people can go in WA is pretty much your own home and your surroundings, and maybe to a shopping centre to get essential services. So the trauma, Fleur, you mentioned in your definition, not just about people's behaviours around them or injuries inflicted, but you also spoke about, some social issues as well. So that ties in, that's a complete correlation between the lockdown culture. What is going on for people in terms of looking at this lockdown culture, or this lockout culture really, and how can that affect our sense of trauma? Like or not our sense of trauma, but how can that induce trauma? Like what are some of the challenges around that we need to be very wary of?
The isolation has always been a key one here, always.
Right.
And I meet veterans all the time that say, I like my own company, and I'm quite happy being by myself and everything. And I like my own company too. I love it when the boys are out and I've got the house to myself. It's great.
But not when we're told we have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then there's having a week or something, and living up in the hills or something and not seeing too many people is one thing. Complete isolation, where actually you're locked down, you're not allowed out, or you're not allowed in the shops, you're not allowed in the cafe, you're not allowed to actually have the meal out with your veteran buddies once a month. You're classed as second-class citizen, or as I've been classed as before, you're a bit stupid, Fleur. Why? I don't understand why you're not having this, and why I can't believe you would believe anything else. Why would? And again, it's my personal medical details. I can't believe we're talking to each other. I shouldn't know about your private medical details. It's your personal things. It's not for me to know. But
and the name calling. So you've been experiencing name calling.
Yes.
You're stupid.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not allowed to talk with some, unfortunately, with some people. They don't value. I've even just cut down my Facebook because I was giving information out. I wasn't saying this is fact, because we're learning. The point was, what do you think of this, and what do you think of that, and anybody heard about this? I've stopped that now because family members didn't like it. So, and I'm not the only one. So I'm one of many. I hear it all the time. Yeah, we don't talk about that with the grandkids or with my son or my daughter, or we cannot discuss. You cannot discuss on social media. There are no discussions. The government will not allow a discussion. We are second-class citizens. We are now not allowed into these places, and yeah. So don't, God forbid, you talk about it or open the conversation.
Well, suppression is one of the ways where tyrannical leaders can control the population. It's well researched, and I'm happy to say I'm one of those researchers, because my research area is unethical leadership practices that affect moral voice.
Amazing.
Like, voice is my thing. That's what I study. And so I'm really conscious of behaviors and strategies and propaganda that causes moral mutism. And moral mutism is the practice or the act of being suppressed about speaking up about what you believe to be what is right and what is wrong. So when you now put our voices in the context of leadership, right? So whether it's, your employer. And so I was closely following the BHP case, where there was lack of consultation. This is BHP case in Australia, where there was lack of consultation with their employees. They weren't consulted. They weren't involved in the process whatsoever. And so that case, BHP lost that case in the Fair Work Australia, at the Fair Work Commission. Or whether it's looking at moral voice as a citizen, and your leaders are the premiers, how is mainstream media suppressing people's voices? Well, we've got Facebook, we can't write certain things on Facebook these days. We use coded language to speak about what is right and what is wrong. You've got your premier, Mr. Mark McGowan, calling West Australians, what was the term he used? He used a really derogatory term. Can't remember what it was exactly. A dimwit. Called everyone if you don't get the jabs and the boosters, you're a dimwit, right? So when you start name calling people who aren't complying or following your narrative, that's one of the strategies. Well, it's verbal abuse for a start. It's denigrating our sense of humanity, and what it causes us to then do from a moral perspective is to then start suppressing our voice. And that's how moral mutism, that's one of the ways that moral mutism starts to happen.
Perfect example.
Exactly.
It's just easier. We won't mention it.
I won't even say it. And then then you place moral voice in the context of your family unit. Now you can't say anything in your family unit. Now, what else can't we talk about? What else do we need to be suppressing?
You've actually brought up a really good. You've just reminded me of a wonderful organisation called PTSD Resurrected, run by veterans, and they run a fantastic thing called. They have a reboot session, which I've done as well, to find out what it was all about, so I can actually tell people if I'm recommended this, I really need to do it myself. And it's fantastic, and it deals with moral injury. This is it. So there were lots of different people on the course, from Afghanistan and other war places, incidents, nurses, things like that. They've been told they had to do something, and they didn't feel right about it. So I can only imagine right now, we have, number one, we have so many job sectors that have been told they have to get jabbed. Okay, or they lose their job. What an awful situation to be in. I don't care that there's no right or wrong in that situation. It's just evil. It's just wrong. It's terrible. But then the ones going on from that and having, so that's the first thing. I've had to do something I don't agree with. Then on top of that, doing the job, maybe giving out jabs, maybe a police officer, part of the COVID operation. Who knows what the things that they've had to do, and they really don't agree with that. It's not really what they signed up to do. So
And that's what I see when, you know, when you were talking about trauma. I was thinking, my goodness, we have to have this conversation, because because my perspectives on it is looking at the moral trauma that occurs. And so when we do have, so what happens is, when we feel as though we've been morally injured, psychologically we've experienced moral distress. And so moral distress is when we're sometimes suppressed from saying something or doing something that we know is the wrong thing to do. So it's like the, you know, nurses who are giving jabs without people's consent. That's a whole other conversation to have, but they're giving jabs without people's consent. Well, some nurses who know that it's the wrong thing to do, but yet do it, they will now experience moral distress, because they've now done something that they know is immoral, right? Once that distress is experienced, and I'm hearing stories from police officers as well, you know, what they're being asked to do in the COVID operation, they're experiencing moral distress. And then after that comes the moral injury. And that's any emotional or psychological traumatic experience that they have. It could be PTSD coming from moral trauma. It could be any kind of mental health, emotional health. Some people that's been involved in my research project, I'm not going to share findings, but I can share some of the stories of it. The self-mutilation that occurs when they've experienced, when they've done something that they know to be wrong, but yet they've had to do it out of compliance. And so this is why I really wanted to get you on tonight and have that conversation, because I know that it's a real thing. I know that the kind of trauma people can experience from doing something that they know to be immoral, to be right, to be wrong, it's not right, to be completely unethical or illegal, but yet they still do it.
Even if they don't know the bigger situation right now.
Exactly.
How do any of us really know? You know,
yeah.
we're all learning every day. We can say we think we believe something, but we really don't know. That won't come out for many years yet, I don't think. But you know, a lot of most people will know in their guts. You know, this is where you come back to your intuition and understanding your body and yourself. You know, everybody says, you know, the biggest change comes from within, and I wholeheartedly believe that's true.
But do you think that if people read a bit more widely, or they watch some of the interviews, and you know, right now there's the grand jury cases by natural law occurring in Germany with Dr. Rainer Fulmich, and they've got well over 100 at least international lawyers. Now those grand jury cases are not heavily promoted, but you bet your bottom dollar I found them, because I wanted to see the evidence. What happens with trauma if you say that trauma is based upon, well, one of the things it's based upon is fear, right? So if people are living in a state of fear because they are only viewing and consuming mainstream media narratives, what then can happen with the experience of trauma if people expose themselves to more information, different information that provided different perspectives that cause them not to be, you know, so biased, or to have that bigotry sense of this is what it is. So what are your
coupled
thoughts on
with
that?
Support, coupled with your tribe, coupled with other people to talk to. Otherwise it can be one hell of a confrontation. If you've got to this point and you still haven't had any nerves, you know, coming up thinking this isn't right, it's going to be one heck of a slap in the face. It's going to be huge. So first of all, murder by decree. Everybody, please look at that. It's truly amazing, and that will give you a whole load of information there to go through. The censorship from all the mainstream channels, TV and social media, it's all censored. So unless you know that, you would just follow, you would just watch. Of course you would. So there's nobody's at fault here, but nonetheless, now's the time to start looking at other avenues. Talk to somebody else that you see is not wearing a mask, or Ilsa or myself. Talk to somebody and just say, so where are you getting your information from? I'm willing to just have a look and see what's out there and try and get a better, not necessarily a better, just a different point of view, a different perspective on this. We're all learning, we're all on the same side here. There should never be different sides. We're all in this together.
I had someone pop in the other day, and we were just my husband and I were watching the opening statements of the grand jury.
How is he? Is he okay?
Yes, he's doing good. He's doing what I'll let
we
him
need
know.
him on here to sing some songs, make us feel good.
Yes, that healing.
Yes.
Anyhow, so she came in, she said, oh, what are you guys up to? And I told her what we were watching. And then 3 hours later, she was still standing there and we were talking because she kept saying what you were saying now. Just, I would never have known this, Ilse. I would never.
Of course not.
Where do you get this information from? How do you know this stuff? Like, that's what it's saying on TV, but where are you getting this from? And I thought that's a brilliant question. Where are you getting this from?
So, Telegram, Rumble.
Yeah.
One of the places I hang out in lately, most of my friends are online, really.
Yeah.
That sounds wrong, I know, but it's true. And
well, the information sharing online is very quick, very easy.
Yes. And I was doing that, and lots of talking between people was fantastic. And then it was just actually for family cohesion, not to this is all family in the UK that I hope to visit again one day. So I don't want to completely alienate them. So forget it. I want to come off Facebook anyway. I really can't stand the place that much anyway. The censorship is crazy.
I'm the same way. I'll be transitioning off Facebook.
Absolutely. So come talk to us and we'll start passing things around. But on Facebook there are some groups. There are Perth Awake and lots of where we are now, lots of groups. So start looking, just start looking, and before you know it, you will see, oh, that links to that, and that links to that, and that corroborates that. So, oh, I thought that was conspiracy. Oh, but actually they're talking about it over there, or that expert in America is talking about it. It's amazing.
Yeah. The information is out there. Information is out there, and I think people have to be people's got to be in a good have a good idea about the fact that there could be another side to the story. But that's really hard to get to that state if you are experiencing a heck of a lot of fear, because then what happens is that confirmation bias cycle perpetuates us. Then we watch the same things that we've always watched to just confirm what we've already known about things. Oh, yes, that's why I need to go and get the booster. Oh, yep, there's another report that's come out. And so we don't want to prove ourselves to be wrong, because we've got to rationalize why our beliefs are the way that they are. So how would someone know, Fleur, if they're experiencing some kind of trauma? What are the symptoms? What do you notice in people that's in your that you work with?
Anxiety is the big thing. Just a little bit more, far more vigilant. What's the term? On edge, all the time. That's definitely one of them. Some are more depressed. Like, why would I go out? I don't want to go out. There's no point, So that's another avenue there. The best thing anybody can do is if you're already seeing somebody, because some of the people I see obviously already have psychologists, counselors, groups, stay in touch with them. That's the biggest thing. Stay away from mainstream media and mainstream news, because it doesn't help anybody really. You can switch off. You don't need to hear our favorite premier talking every day. You're not going to miss anything. If anything changes, you will know. So just switch it off. It's of no benefit.
Those symptoms, I've got to say, apart from depression is probably a more extreme case, but anxiety, I wonder, how many people are walking around with anxiety and they don't even know it, Fleur?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been 2 years. So imagine it's just gone on and gone on and gone on, and people feel have got used to, it's like a new habit. You go running, you keep sticking to it, before you know it's no big deal, and you're running 5k every morning and it's just no big deal. But there's a different weird analogy, I know, I'm sorry, but on the flip side, you hear that news, you take it as fact, you just hear it again, you hear it again, you hear it again, you hear it again, and before you know it, it's really instilled in there. It's in there as truth. You believe the world is like this as you're being told. You
Yeah.
see it as you're being told.
Yeah.
You don't see any other side of it because you're not looking in any other avenues. So you will always find more of the same thing that you're looking at. So you're looking at, oh my goodness, more cases, which as we know mean nothing. More cases, more deaths, more danger, more people to be scared, food shortages, scarcity. People are every day now more scared, anxious, concerned, closed down, not trusting themselves. And even if you're fit and well, and you still got your job and you believe you're doing okay, there will always be an element of this. It's been 2 years. I can't believe anybody would not suffer a little bit. I don't want anybody to, but I can't believe somebody wouldn't suffer a little bit with this. I hope nobody suffers greatly, but it's a hard, look after each other, be kind. This is the time to be kind, to be open to talking, to be open to discussions, be kind to one another, listen, look at different areas of where you get your news and your facts from. We love the Facebook fact checkers. When they found in court to be just opinions.
Opinion checkers, yes.
Like, I could have got a job doing that. Right then.
I have opinions. I have biased opinions. I could be a Facebook fact checker.
That's right. God, we get paid. People could listen to us. Heaven. It's I think get rid of the isolation is the big thing, and keep up the point I started with was, if you have a psychologist, if you have a counsellor, even if you can't see them face to face, because God forbid you're not allowed there anymore, you're not included anymore, there are online things you can do. So, keep pushing that and keep staying connected. Connection is key, I think, for us all to get through this, the human touch.
Yes.
Next time I see you, I'll be a big hug, because, hey, I'm a big hugger. And there was a time when I've kind of got over that a little bit now, but there was a time where you just don't do that. God, that's depressing.
It really was. It really was. And you said something else that was really interesting as well, about the fact that we've been living it for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't even know that they are experiencing this kind of, like, experiencing anxiety or experiencing, low levels of anxiety and so forth because of these things. And I can't imagine, Fleur, that if misinformation or disinformation and the propaganda that's being promoted through mainstream media is part of the reason for the trauma, then my mind says, well, then the way to help resolve that or recover from it is considered information, no more narrative, no more propaganda. People are going to go on a diet of detoxing themselves from all of this fear-based information that they're filling their minds with. Like that could just be me simplifying it in a ridiculous way, but that's what I would be thinking. If that's what's part of the cause for it, like, what is your thoughts on that?
I don't think we know what's going to come after this. I'm excited. I really am excited. I'm scared. I'll be honest. I'm scared right now, but I have faith. I really do have faith and hope that this will come right, and oh my God, we'll be so much better off for it. Yeah, we really will.
I like that.
We have to remember as well. So, look, World War II, okay, that didn't last just 2 years. Went on for a lot longer. Okay, so on the one level, okay, it's only been 2 years. But it's also been 2 years like no other 2 years because of exactly what you just mentioned, because of all the social media, the technology where we have information just like that. We don't have to wait for a pigeon or a cart or whatever mail to get there. Okay. It's there and it's in your face and it's relentless all day long, every day long, in your face, on the radio, get your jab, get vaccinated, save your country, on the train station and stuff like that. You're just like, no.
What about the subliminal messaging? I don't know if you've noticed this or if any of our listeners will be listening, noticed this, but at Woolworths in Australia, they've had a sign up saying for their everyday rewards program, the big letters and the big marketing message is boost.
Oh.
And we saw it last year sometime, and I said to my husband, look at the subliminal messaging. And so if anybody does any research, study, insights into dysfunctional and destructive leadership, which is my field of research. That's where unethical leadership and moral voice. And
I'm so glad you've done that. I'm so glad. It's so interesting. It's wow. It's amazing. Yeah.
So if anyone has done any kind of research into that, whether they know about Machiavellian style leadership, which is highly manipulative leadership behaviors, where they manipulate people's emotions, they manipulate people's psychology. They manipulate social units of people by dividing and conquering. That's just one form of, destructive leadership. Then we've got like psychopathy, etc., narcissism, and so forth. You've done, all you have to know, well, one of the things you got to know is that what they do is they utilize any communication methods they have to disseminate information that will give them ultimate control over people's minds. That is how destructive leaders operate. And so they're all bordering on this either just immoral. They just don't know right from wrong, right? They were never taught right from wrong. They've gone through politics, or they've gone through corporate leadership, and they've just never been taught right from wrong. They've just been taught how to pursue the bottom line. Or they are mentally deranged. They're either psychopaths or somewhere in between that. They use all of these messaging platforms. They have alliances wherever they can that are also benefiting from, usually it's financial and usually it's ultimate control and power. And that is how the message of dehumanization and suppressing people occurs. So when I see these things, I don't think, maybe not. I'm like, there it is. It's everywhere for me. I see it everywhere because I know what I'm looking for.
See, I'm not aware. I'm picking up on stuff now, but because I don't have that knowledge, I wish I did. I really wish I did now. But thank goodness I have some friends that can tell me about it. Yeah.
I'll share, my thesis will be finished soon actually, and I'll share lots of research with you.
Thank you. That'll solve my life. It'd be awesome. Yeah. But at the very start of this, and again, like I said, there is no right or wrong. There is no, some people see it, some people don't. We all find our own way through this. Some have the knowledge and the study that has helped them see this as it first started coming out. For me, it was simply a case of, this is a trial drug. Why would I? I don't want a trial drug. That's all it was. I didn't have to listen to it any further. Simple as that. So there wasn't I'm now targeted as a anti, that's not the case at all, or it might be now, but it wasn't then at all. But I just don't understand. I didn't understand why it would be shoved at us so hard. That's what got my alarm bells ringing, because it was pushed. You must. Exactly. Everybody must. Exactly. Then they went for kids, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, I don't do well when I'm told what to do. I know I've been in the military, I've been in the police. I can march, I can take orders. However, when it's that, and it was very coercive and very emotional and very pushy. Exactly. That doesn't work for me. I can take an order if it's to do something that's needed. That wasn't an order. That was disgusting. Yes, so I was arms folded. No way, not gonna happen.
You've got, your moral compass is intact, and it's not pervaded by fear. So I know many people who I consider highly moral, ethical people. But because they are in fear, for whatever reason, right? For whatever reason, it's eroded their moral compass, and they're not trusting their gut instinct around it. And so for us, just like you guys, for us at the very beginning, it was just like, well, it's an experiment. No, thank you. We're healthy. My kids are healthy. We're all good. If there's a virus going around, which doesn't seem to be doing much more for normally healthy people, then just putting them in bed for a few days, well, then that's not much more than what we would do if we had a virus anyhow. But when it started to become bullying, harassment, coercion through mass manipulation, psychology, emotional manipulation, then the social division that started occurring, and then now we've got dehumanization, on the list. It was literally like I was just ticking off the freaking bucket list of destructive and dysfunctional and unethical leadership. It was straight from the playbook of all of them combined together. And that's when I knew, nah, this is not smelling right. There's a fish here somewhere.
Ilsa's red pen would have been having a field day going over that, right?
Totally, and I've been writing my thesis through all of this, and so, but my thesis has been looking at destructive leadership and moral voice in the context of corporations. And I tell you what, I had to be very diligent and very focused, because man, I wanted to change my thesis to what about unethical political leadership and citizenship moral voice, because the similarities there were just startling, absolutely startling. So once I finished, which will be in another couple of weeks' time, which is fantastic. I just had a meeting with my supervisors this afternoon, and we're on the last review of my thesis. Then I'll be releasing the findings, and my thesis will be available for any crazy people that wants to go and read, 25,000 words or whatever it is. But I think what I'll be doing is writing some kind of prose from some of the key findings and theories that I've used in my thesis, and looking at the current political landscape, because as I said, the correlations are there. It's just, it cannot be denied. It's all there.
I'm interested to know what your experiences have been, particularly with your family and with your children. So what are they aware of?
So in my household, my children they want to know all the information, right? So I've got a 16-year-old, our eldest is a 16-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter, and our youngest daughter, she's 11. And so we talk about both sides of the equation with them. We talk about what MSN, so mainstream media, is telling people. And I also talk about, what other statistics, what other research is showing about that same topic. And then we just talk about it. And then, they'll ask questions. And the questions are usually, why is the premier, or why is the news people saying that it is deadly, or that we have to wear masks for longer periods of time, if all we have to do, for example, is just stay in bed, if it's just like another virus? Well, why is it that people have to get these boosters just to keep a job, if there's other kind of medicines that people can take? That doesn't seem fair that that these people in government are making people do this. Like, where is their choices in all of it? And so, the conversations happen at different levels with all of my kids, but what they're really conscious of, and is probably partly because of my husband, the way that we parent our kids, it's looking for the morality in it. Well, is that being respectful? What's the right and wrong thing to do here? Are we listening to people's opinions, or are we not? And my husband's very much the same. He'll read the things that I send him. Like, I'm the information finder. That's me. And so I just send him stuff, and we'll have a debrief. But that's pretty much how it is in my household. We talk about it. We don't suppress information. I'd be a pretty bad researcher.
I'm moving in with you.
Oh, we'll get the granny flat ready for you.
But that's really healthy and positive way, because again, we're all learning what's going on, but if you can discuss it and listen to one another and find out together, what a better world we'd be in right now, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
If those discussions were allowed. So wonderful, well done.
Thank you.
High five.
Yay. Some preachers just said, I'll just open this up. Preacher just said, I wonder how many families are actually doing that in Australia. And I certainly don't think enough, because based on just purely doing a observational sample of Australian parents.
No.
There's maybe a handful of people I know who are doing this.
There are so many of us, I think, praying that the truth, whatever that may be, the truth just comes out now. We 2 years, we've all had enough. No matter where you are in the world, we've all had enough now. We're just, another day, another week, another month, another 6 months. It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
It is, and I think you've raised so many good points this evening. But one of the things that I liked is that you said making sure that people are connecting with their communities, making sure that they are connecting. Yes. With their psychologists, if they do experience PTSD or trauma, this is going to exacerbate it. If people are feeling worried, concerned, in fear, they feel as though they're perhaps they've got too much of this mainstream media information just filtering through, and all they can see is is this really harsh climate that we're living in right now. Then, Fleur, do you have a group, a Telegram group, a Gab group, like a social media group where, you provide insights, information, and so forth for people? I know you've got Blue Guardians.
I have a for my own personal thing. There's a few 2, 3 little groups I'm part of. Freedom Fighters. An ex-fiery set it up, wonderful guy, and there's a whole bunch of us on there, and some of us know a little bit more on the political side, so they put their information on. Others are veterans, we've all become friends through Blue Guardian, so that's been great as well.
And what about your own personal group? Do you have a group where people who will be watching this video, they might want to get more insights about how to handle it if they're feeling, just overwhelmed with fear, overwhelmed with the narratives, and they need some assistance from you?
Absolutely. So Blue Guardians is on Facebook. By all means, message me. That's great. Website coming up as soon as I can put the last few bits on, and that's in times of trauma. So that will then encompass kind of the Blue Guardians will evolve into that, and it will be far more chats like we're having, Ilse, to the organisations, to the specialists, talking about particular therapies, remedies, ways of coping, ways of making things better. The things for me is options. So far, we've just dealt with every organisation you belong to, and in the papers and everywhere. If anything's wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with you, but if you're struggling with trauma, it's go see a psychologist. If that doesn't help, go see a psychiatrist and get medication. You have to learn to cope, to deal with, to manage it. While that really doesn't sit well with me, and many years ago I thought, I don't like that, there's got to be a better way. And lo and behold, I've met many people since then, and I've said, actually, I'm healed. So Australia may not be ready for that term, but nonetheless, I'm not telling you this, they tell you this. Yeah, right. They feel great, they feel fine. So it doesn't mean they're not human, they won't suffer other incidences later on, but that particular incident is resolved, is sorted. So let's change the narrative around it and give people hope again. There are remedies out there, you can be okay, life can be good, and it will be once we get through this rubbish right now. Yeah. So there's hope out there, options for everybody, because what suits you also may not suit me, and vice versa. Let's find the right one, the right remedy for each of us, and talk about it, and the support. So that's very much with traumatic incident reduction will be one service, my service, but we will be advertising or talking about so many other things as well. So really bringing Blue Guardians together with the service as well. But if anybody needs a chat, if anybody wants to know something, or just say, Flo, you talk a lot, then please, I encourage anybody to send me a message through Blue Guardians. I would welcome the response. I've got big shoulders.
She'd like to keep talking to you. That's fine.
I've got big shoulders. I can take it. It's all good. But I'd love to hear from you, and I know Ilse would. Yeah, we'd love to hear questions and find out more stuff. Absolutely. So this is lovely. I've had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. I think just, just us talking about these types of issues, which gets kept in the darkness all too often. I'm looking at my camera. I can see how I'm sweating and Hicks. So
no, me too. Me too.
But
this, Ilsa, I should pay you for this, because this to me has been therapy. So I have groups I can talk to, and we can, which has been fantastic, but lots of them are online or whatever. It's actually nice to have solid time and say, let's debate it, and discuss, talk about what you've suffered, what I've suffered, what everybody's concerns are. Let's talk about it. Wow. I feel so much better now. So thank you.
And I mean, the thing is as well is that we're both everyday people, but we've also got some very unique specialty areas that can provide insights on these situations, and that's why I really wanted to do these types of conversations. I don't know how many I'll do. Maybe we'll do 3, maybe we'll do 5. If people enjoy it, we'll keep doing it.
Who's the next one? Can people send scorecards or something? 3 out of 10, 10 out of 10. And then kind of where you're going with it.
I think that's great. And I hope people like the format. I didn't want to do it just straight interview style, like, "Hello, what do you think?" Because I think it's just, it's like we chat about interesting
Question
things.
1.
Why don't we just put our conversations online and, just having the conversation about it and people being able to jump in on it. I hope that what we're doing is raising questions for people. We might, hopefully we'll give people a little bit of courage to go and do something that they haven't looked at, inquired about, do something different. But most importantly, this podcast is about humanity unshackled, and it really is about, helping people just find a pathway and just remember their sense of self, remember their innate humanness. Regardless of what's going on out there, don't succumb to the fear mongering out there. Don't succumb to all of that, a lot of the negativity out there. Keep doing you in your truest form, with respect, with kindness, with compassion. But it doesn't mean to suppress your voice. When we suppress our voice is one of our key components of our humanity, our very moral voice. When that gets taken, when we allow people to take that away from us, we're self-dehumanizing. And so I hope that these kinds of sessions will really inspire people to do a little bit more of whatever it is they need to do for that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So much. It's been awesome. Be kind to everybody, I think, is the key thing, regardless.
Yes, absolutely. All right, well, I reckon we'll leave it there, and we look forward to hearing from everyone. And as Flo said, seeing your scorecards. We'll have scorecards now.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. I love it. All right, everyone, we'll leave you to it. Thanks for being here, Flo. It was such a joy. See ya.